Dan, thanks for joining me today. We're having an informal conversation, just more of a fireside chat about a healthy IT partnership.
Yes.
What's working, what's not working, the lay of the land and managed IT services. And are you, Dan, ready to fall in love with IT again?
Roses are red, violets are blue. I love IT, and you should too, Ryan. Yes, I'm ready to fall in love with IT again.
Way to throw out the poem. I hope that's on your wife's Valentine's Day card. Today we're going to cover some common red flags that we're seeing, why good enough IT creates long-term risk for your business, and what a modern proactive IT, managed IT support provider looks like today. What does good look like? I say it all the time.
Yeah.
Let's dig into it, Dan.
Okay.
In your experience and what you're seeing in the marketplace and talking with other business owners in the sales process, what are you seeing most often right now, and what are you seeing lacking?
When I'm out and I'm meeting new people and I'm meeting new business owners and I'm talking to people that we recently onboard, there's a consistent theme. And the theme is, look, fixing my printer and making sure my computer runs, that's just table stakes. I'm sure you've got it. Everybody can do that. What I don't have is the strategy. I don't have that consultative feedback from my old IT provider or our internal staff. We don't have anybody in our organization or consulting with us that can provide us strategy for a year, 2 years, and plus. They can't talk to us about how security integrates with our environment and how we should budget, why we should budget. So it's really that consultative layer that I hear almost every single time I go out.
That's interesting.
Hmm.
Now, I hear strategy and I think outcomes. And I think
Yes.
that there's a challenge that IT has gotten the expectations of IT. Every business is an IT company now, whether they
Yes.
like it or not, in whatever industry they're in. We're so reliant on technology, but also those expectations have changed
Yeah.
around speed, security, strategy, outcomes. It's gotten more and more difficult to, I think, deliver a quality IT services product in this day and age. Are you seeing anything around? Those sort of changes of the triangle, if you will, good, fast, cheap.
Well, yeah, and it is something internally here we call the iPad effect, which is technology and a lot of the platforms that exist, whether it's your phone or your iPad or whatever, it's magic. It's fast. It works most of the time. It's you think it's secure. So business owners have the same expectation for the IT in their environment that it's just seamless, it works all the time, it's super easy to use, and so on and so forth. So I think we've gotten there over the last 10, 15 years as the technology we hold in our hand is so advanced. Business owners and everybody just sort of expect everything to be magic and advanced like that. And of course, it's not.
No, exactly right. It's like the Amazon effect where I can order
Yeah.
something and 2 hours later it shows up, or the iPad effect where I click an app and it just works. Something that I've noticed is that technology's actually gotten more complicated, not less. Ever since the remote work started coming with COVID, more applications, the advent of AI, you have all this different kind of shadow technology. And the expectations that all just magically fits together. And it's actually gotten really difficult to secure that because there's so much out there and so many different applications in use in business that really it comes down to identity management is kind of that new beachhead that organizations have to be adamant about.
Yeah, I really like your feedback there. I think that before 2020 and before COVID, it was our job, Ryan and I's job, and IronEdge's job to secure basically an IT operating environment. So your server closet with your networking gear and your stuff inside of it, it was our job to come in there and secure that one thing, right? You had multiple things in there, but there was really one point in and out. And that was really what we had to secure. Well, fast forward through COVID, the work basically went everywhere. And what I mean by that is everybody went to cloud hosted providers for their application layer and for their mail and for their file storage. And so all of a sudden, IT teams were tasked with not just securing the closet where the internet came in, but all of those different systems and those different sites and those different logins. It created a very, very large IT operating environment basically overnight.
100%.
Yeah.
It's and siloed as well of these operating. I mean, just I look at even our organization and how many applications we use to run our company. And I know a lot of small and mid-sized organizations are under this same sort of pressure where they've got multiple CRMs and ERPs and every acronym under the sun. And how do you make it all talk and work together? And that's where a strategic IT provider can really add value to help guide, consult, and advise around those different application layers. Because as we say, as the application goes, so goes the technology.
Yeah, 100%. And really having somebody in the room with you that can sit there and say, well, how do these systems integrate together? Where is the identity, the user identity stored? Is that on another system? Is that in that unique system? Hey, do you guys also use Dropbox and Box? And how does that work? Having somebody asking those questions and sort of interweaving everything together with a common thread of functionality, speed, and security, that's where somebody like us can come in, or a senior level person in your organization. But you have to have that right now because it's gotten so complicated.
Yeah, it's interesting as we look at the evolution of technology service providers over the last 20 years that I've been in this business. It's interesting. We started out as consultants. We moved to almost reactionary, all-inclusive help desk, centralized services, and it feels like the pendulum's now shifting back to being business analysts, being consultants again.
I,
Like it's
I,
it's done this wave effect.
It really, really has. And I see it out in the marketplace. And that's what we led with here is that's what I'm hearing people want. People, IT for the last 10 years, a ticket would come in, we would work the ticket. It's kind of response driven. We would fix the ticket. Everybody would be happy and they'd like IronEdge and we'd go on with our business. Well, that's just considered just basic operations. Everybody assumes you're going to
Yeah,
do
it's
it. Nobody
table
really thinks about
stakes.
it. It's totally table stakes right now. So you're right. That consultative, um, delivery that we had 15 years ago is back. Absolutely.
Now, there's some red flags with that. If I look at like the reactive IT model, which I don't think IT ever gets out of being reactive. Something breaks, you fix it.
Right.
But what are some of the other red flags that you've seen in regards to that sort of reactive IT model, as well as obviously we've identified the lack of strategy. But again, what are some of the red flags you're seeing in the marketplace to maybe the IT relationship isn't working for your
Mm,
business anymore?
yeah. Yeah. The signs your IT relationship isn't working
Show me the
anymore.
signs.
What is it? So people can feel it more than anything else. And it's feeling like there's really slow response times or reoccurring issues. That stuff drives everybody crazy. And it drives leadership crazy when that stuff bubbles up and people get so frustrated downstream that they come in and they pull in their leader, they pull in an executive and say, look, I've submitted 3 tickets on this. It's not getting fixed. We get it. That feels very reactive. It doesn't feel good for anybody involved. But when you're seeing quite a bit of that, that's a red flag there. And second, another big one that I see is as we're working with billing, we try to condense our billing here in what we do. So it's relatively simple to understand. You get a bill or two a month, and that's about it. But when you're receiving bills from your MSP or any vendor and they're not consistent, you don't know what's on there, there's all 35 things in there, and the contract in general is kind of unclear. That's also a red flag to me that I suggest people really dig into those things and see if you need to look at other providers that have clear contracts, expectations are clearly set, billing is relatively easy to digest, and you're feeling like you're getting a quicker response time, and you're feeling like things generally are solved within the first call.
Yeah, my favorite analogy about outsourced IT support in general is when everything's working, what am I paying for? And when everything breaks or you have a crash or an outage, what am I paying for?
That's right. Yeah, that's a really good meme, and we could have a whole podcast about that. But that's really true, and it's our job as the IT provider to come in and sort of answer both of those questions, and sort of be in the room and go, hey, that's a fantastic question, and I get it. Here's what we're doing, and here's how we can prove you in the future we are doing these things, so you don't forget what we're doing over here.
So I think that clear contracts, clear costs, no surprises, quality response times, a lot of this stuff is almost table stakes. But is there anything else where, reactive IT or maybe not the right partnership for your business that you can call out on, things to look for?
Yeah, yeah. So I mentioned one just a second ago, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit deeper. When your IT in general and your IT operations sort of feel stressful all the time and nothing consistently works, and there's a lot of confusion on how to do things. Like you may have 2 or 3 VPN clients that people use, and you're not really sure which one to use and why you have this one that works and doesn't. When things start to feel stressful instead of stable, that's kind of that's not a good sign at all. Another one that I think is really important right now, and since COVID and in what we do every day, when it feels like security isn't a primary thread that is sewn into the business, when it feels like security is kind of this add-on feature and sort of this little brother of the IT operations, that's a red flag to me. And that's sort of this reactive model that we've tried to get away from. We want security in particular to be a decision in every single thing we do, every single product that we use, every single discussion we have on the executive level, and any level really. We want security to be embedded in all of that. But if your MSP is sort of bolting it on and talking about adding a feature here or doing this there, then it's really not integrated into the environment. Reactive IT and red flags for folks would also be the situation where they don't have any obvious reporting that IT is functioning and the MSP is doing what they say they're going to do. It can feel good, it can feel bad, but when you have data, that really creates the warm and fuzzy. Like, I've got all this data saying good and bad things. That's fantastic, but I have data to make decisions on. And when leadership has that, that's a really good thing.
Well,
And
I think they've got to look at that data. So good data in means good reporting out.
yes,
But you've got to review that and understand, okay, what is the data actually telling me? What story is this telling me that I can craft a response to? And so if you have that lack of visibility with your current provider, you can't make those decisions. One of my favorite things is like, okay, what is the most number one recurring ticket? It
yeah,
turns out, just, off the cuff example, like this printer constantly has issues. Then let's replace the printer.
yeah,
Why are we suffering
right.
with these problems and issues and recurrence when we can just replace the problem and make the investment to remove that hassle factor from our environment? I think it comes back to having those proactive conversations. And I always say, as you work with your outside vendors, it's as much of a vendor relationship as it is a relationship. And you get what you put in to any relationship, right? And then Valentine's Day is a great time to bring up relationships. But the amount of effort that you put in will double its relationship value. And what I'm trying to say, and not very well, obviously, Dan, is you've got to invest in your business and invest in these relationships to get the outcomes that your business deserves. And so, reviewing those reporting, taking the time to sit down and have these strategic conversations are super critical to the longevity of the IT relationship and making sure that IT is working for you and not against you. And I take that a step forward and say, okay, how are you having those conversations with your IT provider now to ensure that you've got a roadmap, some sort of expectation management? What do you think, Dan, is the most appropriate way to have those conversations? What's the frequency? How do you engage with your IT service provider to ensure that you're driving to outcomes for your business?
Yeah, I have two thoughts here. The first one is you're going to have tactical meetings, sort of base level operations meetings, figuring out what's going on with certain tickets and understanding why tickets aren't escalated, things like that. Those should be sort of set to the side, and those are fantastic, and those get a lot of that gets a lot
Well,
of
you
things
have to do
done.
them. You have to have
You
the
have to do
tactical,
them.
but that's almost focused on the reactive, not the proactive.
That's exactly what it is. But then on top of that, you layer the strategic and consultative discussions. And a good, healthy relationship, in my opinion, you're consistently talking about that stuff in phone calls and in questions and answer and in emails, but really formally, you're sitting down maybe once a quarter to sit down and say, okay, as a leadership team, us and let's talk about where we're tracking on your current strategic goals. Let's talk about modifications to those goals or new goals that have popped up. But as often as quarterly, depending on the size and complexity and sort of dynamic nature of your environment, but it could be a little bit less than that. But a really good client success team has account managers, people in that position that are constantly considering the strategy and considering how to get you where you need to be and sort of developing their responses and what they're doing around that. So really, it's kind of all the time. But formally, at least once a quarter, you're having very specific discussions and outcomes related to it.
You brought something interesting, client success. Double click on that for a second because I've seen IT providers that have a client success department, a division, a person,
Yes.
they've got account management. There's a lot of different acronyms, titles that float around in the industry. Like, what am I looking for in that client success if we want to latch onto that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. People ask me that type of question. So I can give you my opinion, and I'm glad to do so. Uh, if an organization treats their sort of account management and what we would say is consultative layer, if they treat it more as like an inside sales department, just purely with no consultative and no strategy, that goes back to one of the red flags for me. I want to have a partner that appreciates us, that lets us help with the strategy and vice versa. That's really, really powerful, especially for the amount of money people are going to spend on their technology. So if you're not getting that experience and you're basically getting somebody that'll occasionally hit you up to see if you need to buy anything or to place an order or whatever, that's a bit of a red flag. Now,
It's like an
certain,
inside sales type person that's
right.
just there to try to sell something.
Right. We certainly need to do that as an MSP. We need to, get things sold and get things executed, things like that. But if there's not the same person that's also being consultative and providing that guidance and being sort of, the person that comes and visits you and knows about you and wants to get you better and executing on a strategic level, that's the red flag. So that's my opinion, which is you want that account management position, regardless of what it's called. Sure, part of their job is sort of getting quotes signed and things like that. But I'd say 75% of the job is the strategic and the communication and sort of bridging gaps on our side, bridging gaps on your side, and doing those type of tasks to make you successful and to keep you as a really happy client for your MSP.
You know what I tell our client success team all the time is we're here to help, not sell.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times clients need to make investments in their IT infrastructure. They need to buy a new laptop or, upgrade some infrastructure. But at the forefront, we've got to help. We're there to solve
Hmm.
problems and deliver outcomes. And that's the number one thing is having a strategic outlook on the customer to ensure that we are adding value every day. At the end of the day, if you don't feel like your service provider is adding value to your business, then you need to second guess the relationship.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? Oh, take a ticket, eat a ticket. That's all good and well. That's table stakes. But how can I have more of a modern IT partner?
Yeah, I think that you can ask questions to your provider right now, really, to sort of suss out whether or not they're your provider. If they're, things like, do you have a roadmap? If you don't know this, do you have a roadmap for us as your client for the next 6 month, 6 months,
Or 12 or
12,
24?
12 months? Does that even exist on your side? If your managed services provider or consultant isn't actively helping you with your budgeting, which is a total add-on that we do, and we don't charge a dime for that. That's a problem too, because you want them to be able to take costs to you and solutions to you and say, hey, I've got several clients within your industry. There's this fantastic platform that they've used that accomplishes this thing. Here's what it costs over the next year. You want to have those discussions with your MSP. And if you're not, your IT provider, that's as we talk about red flags. Um, that's a red flag is if they're not in those discussions and if they're not capable to be in that discussion, that's a red flag too. Like if you're the person that you interact with at your IT provider really isn't capable of being in a budget discussion or providing these things, that's something I would really call out and understand whether or not you're getting the support that you really need.
So as you look at like the roadmap conversation, a budgetary conversation, like can you double click on those a little bit? Is like what would be in a roadmap? Like what as a customer of an IT provider, what am I looking for inside that roadmap to know that it's valid or actionable? What are some of the headlines?
Yeah, so to make sure it's actionable and then to talk about sort of general things that we see, everything should have a time requirement to it. Like there should be a time where you're going to execute or have something solved. So I think that's
Well,
really,
that's how
really
you
important.
hold people accountable.
Exactly. And that you can then hold your IT provider accountable and say, hey, we said we were going to accomplish this thing together, and it would be done by Q3. And right now we're a year later. We need to be accountable on that. So time-based strategy is important. But generally, the way we run our strategic efforts is when we first meet you and start to go through the pre-sales engagement, the people from the strategic solutions team at IronEdge, they're taking notes and sort of sussing out different strategic things that they hear you say that you need, and they're kind of adding on their flavor into that. And they've created some goals and IT strategy that if you sign up with us, you're getting sort of roadmapped, and you're getting this plan, and we call it the red, yellow, green plan. And it's saying, okay, from a strategic standpoint, here's the things we believe you should accomplish. And you told us you needed these things, or you told us we needed to solve a problem. Here's what they are. Here's also the priority of them. And generally speaking, roughly what they will cost and how long it'll take. And that is a deliverable from onboarding on. And that deliverable goes to the client success team from the pre sales to the client success team. And they then use those things as a roadmap to create your strategic plan. So actionable items that have meaning, uh, time brackets around all of these things, and a plan that grows and evolves with your life cycle with us, from pre-sales all the way through maturity. That's what I would look for.
Yeah, I mean, the rate of change for businesses, I feel like has accelerated just in the last 5 years. Like we're just constantly in a state of change. Business outcomes change, desires change, growth plans change overnight for customers and clients and prospects. I think the strategic plan has to evolve like that. Like you've got some, here's the top five things you want to accomplish. Okay, let's, push this out or bring this forward. And then, come up with a budget around those. I think one of the biggest gaps is thinking, oh, I can sign up with a managed service provider and everything's just solved. Sometimes that requires investment, Dan. Have you run into, any stories
Yeah.
around, hey, look, if we don't make this investment, we're not going to get this outcome?
Yeah, what we see consistently, well, maybe not consistently, we see it often, is folks that their IT infrastructure just sort of crumbled around them and is causing serious problems, and it's not healthy. And then they come to us for help. And I say, hey, we've got all these problems, our IT. And then as we dig into it, they're like, oh, the servers are 12 years old, and nothing has been sort of maintained, and everything's just kind of a mess.
And then they
Well,
wonder why they have problems.
that's right. And they come to us to solve it. And so what we try to be transparent on is, well, IT is a consistent investment, right? You can't go in this IT debt, is what we call it. You can't really go into IT debt because to get it, it creates a lot of risk, number one, from a security and operations standpoint. But number two, to get out of it oftentimes is much more expensive than just to maintain it. So I do see that consistently. So educating sort of the business owners and the leaders that we work with, even if we don't do business with them, that hey, this is important. And another green flag for us is when people will make that IT spend, and it's obvious they'll make the IT spend on appropriate things. That signals a really healthy relationship for us. I'd say more often than not, though, we're getting people that just need to be educated to do that. And the way you do that is a consultant from your MSPs helping you budget and helping you with your strategy and helping you do these things. That way you can plan for spend and you can sort of make the ownership happy that you plan for these things. And it kind of all goes together.
It's getting in front of it, right?
Yes,
It's
sir.
it's managing expectations, having the conversations, and ensuring that the IT roadmap is aligned to the business goals. And I think that
Hmm.
gets forgotten a lot, especially if you've been with a IT or MSP provider for many, many years. It starts to just become kind of the habit relationship
Right.
versus the strategic relationship, the moving forward relationship, and making sure that you've got the sort of strategy baked into budget transparency and accountability.
Yeah, I love it. That's exactly true. And that's something every MSP fights is that you have a client for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. They've spent the money. They're relatively stable. They're kind of good. Everybody, they're happy. We're happy. Support's happy. Well, it can be very easy to fall in that trap where, okay, good, everybody's good. We don't necessarily have to spend a lot of cycles, but your MSP should be investing in strategic cycles with you, even if everything's stable, and especially if everything's stable, because then you're getting a lot more time and effort on forward thinking as opposed to the reactive.
Sounds like a good enough IT scenario. It's good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Good enough is something that we hear and something we try to avoid. Well, when your IT is just good enough, generally speaking, in my experience, those are the environments that have a security issue, that don't necessarily meet the needs a year and 2 and 3 years later because you're not really spending the time and effort and sometimes money to put in an environment that is truly robust, that's secure, that's stable, that can last you 7 years if it's a server, something like that. So the good enough doesn't accomplish those things a lot of the time.
Interesting. I wanted to
Hmm.
circle back. You'd mentioned we say security in like every other sentence. Cybersecurity is the forefront. And this is not a cybersecurity podcast or webinar. It's really about what does modern managed IT look like. But I think cybersecurity is a piece of that. Can we go back into like, how do I ensure my IT service provider has security at the forefront, like security baked in and not
Yeah.
bolted on, like you said earlier?
Yeah. Really good
What am I
question.
looking for?
I'll give you specifics. And when I review potential client prospect environments and they don't have these things, it's a big red flag to me. So number one, you really want to have a next gen antivirus platform in place. Everybody should have it everywhere. And that's different than what we've had for the last 15 to 20 years. It's different. The antivirus system works
They've
differently.
evolved.
They've evolved. And if your provider isn't providing you what's truly next gen AV, and you can look that up, that's driven by AI, and it's sort of this model that can detect things when they're happening and stop it. And it's not just this list of viruses that it's trying to find all the time, list of files. So if they don't have that, that's a very large red flag. I'm all about the red flags today. So number two, there should be multiple layers to the security onion already in place in that base product. If they're trying
Security
to,
onion, Dan?
yeah, yeah, onions, ogres are like onions, and so is security. Security is like onions. And what we say is we want to put as many layers of the onion in place in between the bad guys and you. That's financially responsible, right? The more generally is the better, but we want to have those. We want to have that in our base package. It's really important to us. Once 2020 hit, we put three different things as our base package. We kept those things in place, and it was really a differentiator between us and our peers. I don't believe you should be nickeled and dimed to death for adding on sort of base level security, zero trust, DNS filtering, things like that. There should be multiple layers within the product that you're getting from your MSP. And if you're not, it's not a core part of their business.
Well, I think the problem there is too is all of that has costs, right? The
Yeah.
the IT service provider is licensing, this software solutions, whether it's Sentinel One or Huntress or all the different ones. McAfee, I think, is still out there. Boiling that in and baking that into the solution offering, I think is critical, but also it has a cost to it. Security is not cheap. These products aren't inexpensive, and so it comes down to matching how secure can I be as a business, and what's my budget to do that. Because I'll be honest with you, until somebody has a security incident, they tend to not invest in security.
They don't feel the pain is what we say people come to us and have come to us for years, many years, saying, we just had this very large security event. Can you help us bail out of this? Even people we don't know. And every once in a while we can come in and sort of help. But there's been times, and Ryan knows, where people have come to us with a very large security event. There's not a lot we can do. And there's been times where their business has gone out of business. It's absolutely true story. But that being said, I believe that security should absolutely be a core part of the product. It should have multiple layers. It should drive the consultative discussions. It should be part of the budget. And it's just like a true base of everything that MSP is doing right now.
Yeah, I think the MSPs have evolved into cybersecurity organizations. And if they haven't, you need to reevaluate your relationship. Dan, this has been interesting. I know we set this up as just a quick chat talking about different red flags, green flags. I think we talked about all the flags. And we touched on obviously what to look for, where are things going, how do we be more strategic with our partners. And so if you're out there and not sure where your relationship is as we lead into Valentine's Day, and you're ready to love IT again, reach out to Dan, myself, everyone here at IronEdge, and we'll show you what a strategic relationship can do for your business. Thanks for joining us and appreciate all the attendees that jumped on. And we'll see you next time when maybe marketing access to do this again. I don't know if they will. It's hard to
Thank
know.
y'all.